Latest one topped out, I think, at one point at 13 miles per hour, and that was on a straight stretch of US 23. Outside of that, it was pretty much walking speed. There was really only one or two times, I guess I should say, along the route that when I was out walking ahead of it, I kind of had to jog to stay ahead of it because it was picking up some speed. For the most part, this was walking speed, very, very slow and methodical move.
Matt Bruning joins me now. He is with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Matt, how are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Very excited to talk to you today. I'm sure it's been a busy past couple of days, weeks, probably months. Talk to me about the superload that just went through the state.
Yeah, so this was one of the largest superloads of the 24 or so we have or will be moving here over the next couple of months. And the first couple went to a plastics recycler in Hebron. All of these are now going to Intel, including this largest load, which tipped the scales at more than 916,000 pounds. It's about 280 feet long. It was a huge piece of equipment that was going to the Intel plant in Licking County. We had to get it all the way from the Ohio River to Central Ohio. So it took us about 9 days to make that trip.
Wow. Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about what it is, what it does, and the size, length. You mentioned the weight.
hmm Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about the what it is and what it does, but I can tell you it is a cold box for Intel, and I know it's used in the chip making process. Beyond that, um, we just know it's a really big box that has to get there. So ODOT's role has been, making sure that our infrastructure can handle a piece of equipment this large, 23 feet tall, 20 feet wide, 280 feet long, and again, more than 916,000 pounds. So this was a large, large piece of equipment. It presented some challenges for sure, but our team, along with Edwards, which was the company that moved it, did a great job getting that thing from point A to point B.
And what is the planning process like for moving something of this size?
It starts really early. In fact, about a year or even a year and a half ago, and it starts with a lot of meetings. So first of all, what does the client want to haul? What are they trying to move? That is question number one. And then what is the size of it? And then once we know that little bit of information, we can start analyzing routes because what we need to look at is can the bridges and the roadways handle that weight? Do we have any overhead obstructions, for example, that would be a problem for the height of that particular load? Are there any turns where the width and the length might be an issue? Are the roads wide enough? Do we need to go contraflow, meaning are we going northbound in the southbound lanes, for example, on a highway? Do we need to go up and over a exit ramp because we can't get under the overpass? So there are a lot of things that we had to take into account to plot out a route to make sure that this could get from a dock site down in Adams County along the Ohio River to this new Intel plant being constructed in Licking County in central Ohio to the east of Columbus. And well over 100 miles that we had to traverse. And you got to make sure you can do that safely above all. So that was a big part of the planning process. And then, of course, just getting the escort team together. The Ohio State Highway Patrol has to escort this through the state of Ohio. So we had to make sure we had enough troopers for the traffic control. Working with the hauler, they had to get utility crews in and companies that could raise and lower power lines and traffic signals. And then just working with the stakeholders. There were a lot of communities along this route. When we started, school was still in session here in Ohio. So you had to make sure that you weren't impacting or at least minimizing the impact to school buses trying to get to and from school. So these were all the little things that we had to think about that kind of brought into a big thing to make this work.
Wow. So yeah, even thinking, I assume like the time of year, like you said,
Mhm.
there's so much that goes into it that probably a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, these largest loads, we knew they were going to be more impactful than, say, some of the earlier smaller loads. And so that's why they were scheduled for the time frame they are. We don't have school in session, so it's easier to not have an impact there. We have more daylight in the summer, and so we knew these were going to move a lot slower. You cannot move loads like this at night in the state of Ohio, and so we had to maximize the daylight that we've got. So all of that was taken into account.
You know what the speed was that they were able to go with this?
This latest one topped out, I think, at one point at 13 miles per hour, and that was on a straight stretch of US 23. Outside of that, it was pretty much walking speed. There was really only one time one or two times, I guess I should say, along the route that when I was out walking ahead of it, I kind of had to jog to stay ahead of it because it was picking up some speed. For the most part, this was walking speed, very, very slow and methodical move.
And I assume the roads were they closed down when this thing was coming through?
Yeah, so what we do is a rolling roadblock. There are a couple of sections of roadway where it's a two-lane road, so you're basically shutting the whole thing down ahead of it. Once it moves through, the road opens back up behind it. Um, in cases where we had, a four-lane highway like US 23 north of Portsmouth all the way up through to Chillicothe, we were able to maintain southbound traffic for the most part while rolling that roadblock on northbound side.
And obviously, communication, I would think, is a big part of your role, but a big part of getting it out to the community to know that this is going to be happening. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, it was very important that we let people know. I mean, generally, we move a lot of these large loads in the state of Ohio. We're a state that makes and moves things, and so there are super loads. I won't say infrequently across Ohio. We normally don't make too big of a deal about it because it's usually a one and done kind of thing. In this case, we knew we were going to have about 24 of these super loads going through the same route and at a pretty frequent rate. I mean, we've almost, save for a couple of weeks, had one per week so far. That's a lot of impact to people, and we realized that. So we kind of took a different game plan with these and said we're going to get out ahead of this and almost over communicate. We're going to put out. We stood up a whole web page for it. We've set up an email list that people can subscribe to that gets them an update each day about what the next day's load, move, and route is going to be. We've been posting a lot of like turn by turn almost updates on social media to let people know because we want people to plan ahead. If you've got a doctor's appointment, we don't want you to miss that doctor's appointment because you didn't know that this super load was moving on the roadway. We want you to be able to plan ahead and know, well, this thing might be in my community around noon, and I've got a doctor's appointment at 1 o'clock. I should probably leave earlier so that I can make sure I avoid it. And we had a lot of people tell us, thank you, thank you, thank you so far for these updates because they have helped. And that's what we're trying to do is just give people that information so they can plan ahead and make decisions based on that.
And I think anytime a super load goes through anywhere, it does gain a lot of attention. What has that been like? Of course, lots of media outlets, I'm sure, have been contacting you.
Hmm. Yeah, we've had a lot of media attention to this. We've had a lot of community engagement, which is cool. It serves two parts there. I mean, it is interesting to see something this big move through your community. It's not something you see every day for sure, and so there is an interesting and aspect to this, and curiosity aspect to it. But also, it's cool to be able to showcase what Ohio as a state can do, what ODOT can do, what these haulers can do, what the economic value of a company like Intel coming to Ohio and being able to move this stuff across our infrastructure can do. It's a showcase of really the economic power of Ohio that, like, yes, you can bring a company here and this is not a deterrent. We can move all kinds of things to get you what you need to do business in Ohio. So I think there's that. It's a couple of things. It's kind of showing off, but also that curiosity factor as well.
And talk to me a little bit more about the curiosity factor when it came to, I know you were with the load some. What were people's reactions like who saw it going through?
I think a lot of it was just they couldn't believe how big this one was, especially with the situation here. This was the 12th super load that we've moved on this route here this year. And some people have obviously come out to see several of them and have talked about how large these, 300,000-pound loads are, for example. And we've been warning them. Those are going relatively smoothly. When we move these 900,000-pound, these largest loads, it is going to be a lot more impactful. So be ready for it. And I think the reactions from people has been like, yes, you were right. It has been more impactful. And two, holy cow, I had no idea these things were going to be that large. I mean, they have quite literally been three times the size of some of the other loads that have moved. And so I think that that has really caught people's attention. And the coolest thing for me, honestly, Ashley, has been um, seeing the kids that come out, and I mean, who among us hasn't done the pumping of the arm to try to get that trucker to honk their horn. And we've seen that so many times. And we're blessed with a great crew from Edwards that obliged and honked the horn several times. And you'd hear the kids scream and yell and cheer. And so it's been fun to see that, and just bringing communities together to see this, curiosity come through their community has been kind of cool to see.
That's awesome. And lastly, now you mentioned this is one of about 2 dozen loads that are going through. When is the next one planned for?
So the next one, we haven't locked down the date, but it will be after the July 4th holiday. We're also looking at ways we can, maximize our time on the routes. So there may be a couple of days that we've been able to combine moves and go a little further than we did with the first one. And that's something we saw with the very first of these superloads. We would learn things about the route, where maybe a utility line that snagged us on the first leg of it, make sure we don't do that again on the second leg and we get ahead of it. And then all of a sudden we've now gained some time and we can go a little further. So I think you'll see us, instead of doing a 9 to 10 day move, it may be a 7 to 8 day move. So we're still trying to get those logistics worked out. And so we haven't locked everything down, but it will be after the 4th of July holiday.
All right. And for people who are curious, where to learn more about this, where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to transportation.ohio.gov/superload. That will get them all of the information about each load. We post as much as we can. Again, we're not the experts on what these things are or what they're used for, but Intel has done a great job of putting out some information to kind of help answer some of those questions. So, for example, with this particular load, we were able to link right from that website to an Intel newsletter that explained exactly what these were to help answer questions for folks. So we'll continue to do that, put out as much information as we can. That also allows people to sign up for that daily email to get an alert of where these things are going to be on the route each day. And so again, trying to put as much information out there to help people plan ahead is what we're trying to do.
All right. Anything else you want to add that I may have missed?
The only other thing, going back to your people coming out, it was interesting to see where we heard from people. I got a call, for example, from a gentleman in Newcastle, Indiana, who had seen something on Facebook about these things, and he actually drove to Chillicothe, Ohio, to see this thing move. Blew my mind that the guy would drive probably close to 3 hours just to see a large truck drive down the highway. But that's the kind of curiosity that we had from people. So really neat to see that. And it wasn't just Ohioans, but it was people from other states that came up here to take a look at things.